Kia ora, this is Janky Gamesmiths, and I'm going to quickly run you through the Janky Render Stack very, very briefly, but just to get a overview and idea as to what this asset's all about. So let's jump in. Wicked. So the Janky Render Stack is a really simple, lightweight toolset that lets you play with your post-processing and rendering stack and order in a pretty unconstrained manner. Obviously, there are already solutions out there, such as the built-in Unity post-processing render stack. But for me, I find that at times a little bit difficult to control and can be a little bit cumbersome when creating custom shaders. So this has been set up for people that like to produce custom processing and just want a really quick, easy, controllable system to work with. So within the Janky Render Stack example, you've got some pre-created lightweight render types. Sorry if you can hear my computer taking off in the background, it does that sometimes. But yeah, within this you've got a noise warp, which is using a noise layer to push the pixels around the screen. Nice and easy. You can imagine that if you were going to be creating, let's say, a rain droplet effect, this would be really powerful, or something similar would be very powerful to use. You've also got a pixelation shader that you can use and completely quantize your screen down to whatever layer or pixelation level that you want to. You've got a posterization effect that is attacking the hue saturation, and I believe it's a brightness or illumination value. I forget what V stands for. But as you can see, this crunches the color within the scene or within the render process down somewhat. You've got another variation which is a RGB posterization. So this is equally crunching all of the different red, green and blue values coming through from the screen grab. And then you have a basic chromatic aberration as well. And you can have these all going on at the same time to create a very funky, stylized final render. Now across to the actual system and how it sits in the project. The Janky Render Stack is attached to your camera that you wish to render. You can have multiple Janky Render Stacks within a scene nice and easily, and you just attach it and it's set up and ready to go. What it does is it takes it computes a buffered scene render, or like camera render, which you can see floating down in this tiny, this final render variable down the bottom here. In all honesty, this is just a visual debug to make sure that things are operating the way that they should. Also within the editor, you have the ability to toggle on and off your render effect. You're not going to see that now because I don't have any of the mixing values turned up for these particular materials, but we'll go through and we'll turn those up and show what the final output looks like when controlling the materials. So I'm just going to toggle that on. We'll start off with noise warp. What I have here is a mixing value. So this is lerping from the input texture. Actually, I'll just quickly go back. Skipped a step. So it takes the buffered render texture and passes it into the target texture property on your material. So for all of the Janky Render Stack examples, it's just using input as the texture property coming in. The material or shader then processes the input data and then passes it to the next one in the hierarchy. As you could probably tell, you'd be able to arbitrarily reorder the processing chain live while you're trying to get that final output that you want within the stack. Anyway, back to the noise warp. So I'm using a lerp on this, so that allows you to create some other kind of funky, almost psychedelic looking effects if you push too far into one domain. Same with pushing too far into the other domain. 0 at the moment is representative of on, so you're seeing all of those bump pixel warps throughout the scene. But I could also put it into some ridiculous negative number and then turn that warping value up, and you're going to see that your screen does some crazy stuff there. There we go. If you want to go full acid trip, that's what we got. But just in a regular lerp mix, you're getting something like this. What you can also do is you can do a half mix, so get a nice fade through effect. That's why I've got it set to a lerp mix rather than just a simple on and off toggle. And that's pretty much the same for each of your different effects. I'm quickly just going to bump the effect lerps all to be a half mix. So you're getting everything layered over the top of one another, and it can become a little bit gross and disorientating when you do that, but just for the purpose of this preview. Okay, cool. So we've got a nice funky output. I'll also turn the intensity of the noise warp down a bit, so you're not getting too much noise on the screen. Whoops, come on. Yeah, there we go. That's just enough to represent things properly, and with pixelation I'm going to crunch that down so you can see pixelation working to full effect. Same thing with posterization. For the HSV, bring it down there. Sorry, that's my dog in the background. And RGB, so you can see those adjusting in real time. Nice and easy, and then you can go back and toggle that on and off. Cool. Now, as I mentioned, most of the real power of the setup is being able to arbitrarily reorder things. So if I bring the noise warp down, you can see that the noise warp is now affecting also the pixelation layer. If I want to make that more prominent, I'll just bring the pixelation up to full and the noise warp up to full, so we're not getting a semi-transparent effect. So now we've got pixelation being affected by the noise warp since it's sitting at the end. I can also bring the chromatic aberration down as well, and if I bump up the values there for the chromatic aberration, should be able to see that that's happening after those two effects. So yeah, it gives you lots of creative control within the domain of rendering. Sorry, I keep on sitting back from the mic a bit. Okay, now just while we have time in this quick run through, I want to show you a fly through of how to make a shader. So let's delete these from the list. Let's also just turn that off for now, and I'm gonna remove pixelate. So very fast shader setup. And I'm using the Amplify Shader Editor for this example. So let's just set up a texture sample. I'm going to keep this really lightweight. I'm going to call it input, so it replicates the same values as before. Cool, connect up, awesome, and let's just call the shader example Now for reference, I'll jump back to the example shaders that I have in here, just for my own re-reference. Cool. So that's all set up and laid out fine. So it's taking input, and then the big one here is we're just using texture coordinates. So that's the screen texture. Let's bring that all into view. Pardon me. To set the render texture for final output. Now this is the one thing that I keep on forgetting about, which is you need to have it set up as a custom render texture set to initialize. Let's see if I can bring that down so you can see it on the screen. So custom render texture set to initialize. So you're just pushing everything to a frag color output. So let's go back to our test shader. Why won't you open up in the window properly? Okay, so let's go through. I'll bring it down so you guys can see what I'm doing. There we go. So I'm just setting it to initialize. Wicked. And now, technically, that should all operate properly. And I'll multiply the input by a color value so you can see that this is actually working in the chain, and color, awesome. We'll make the color nice and pretty and green so it's easy to identify when it's working. And then I'm also going to quickly just create a new material. Yet again, just calling it something silly. And that material is already set to that example shader that I've set up. And finally, let's drag that material onto the Janky Render Stack and click Preview. And as you can see, it's working. It's making everything green. So yeah, that's pretty much just how to set up a custom shader in Janky Render Stack. I'll do a more in-depth tutorial about this a little bit further down the track. But obviously, if you're using the same kind of practices with your shader setup, you'll find that it should work with pretty well with other shader creation platforms, or for making your own render shaders. And with multiple passes, you can get some pretty powerful effects out of this. And yeah, I will endeavor to create some more shaders that you can work with. I've done some light testing on exactly how performance heavy this is, and it seems to be incredibly lightweight at the moment, so that's always nice. Obviously, if you're going full hog and creating some really performance heavy textures, or like sorry, not textures, materials and shaders, that might take a hit to performance, but it just depends on how you're working with your custom shader creation. Yeah, so thanks everyone. That is the Janky Render Stack very quick overview. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.